Well, Donald Trump wins again, much to the surprise of absolutely no one. CBN's Dan Andros here, joined by CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody. David, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Not going too well for Nikki Haley tonight. I'm not quite sure if we can get her on the line. She looks a tad busy right now, Dan. It's been a rough night yet again.
Yeah, you're looking at a live shot there of Nikki Haley's headquarters. Donald Trump spoke earlier. This thing was called just a few minutes after 7 o'clock when polls closed. As of now, AP has about 20% of the votes counted, and Trump's up 15 in that. And so we'll see what the final margins is, but it was big enough where it was called very, very early. And so Trump went and spoke earlier. We'll have a clip of that here in a minute, but we're keeping an eye on Nikki Haley so we can get maybe a few moments of her remarks and what she's saying. Because, David, again, this was not a surprise to anybody. So now the big question is, again, similar to what we had last time, what is the path forward here for Nikki Haley?
There is none. Good night, everybody. It's been a pleasure. This has been our live coverage of the YouTube now. There's no path. Dan, there's no path. I mean, look, there was no drama here tonight. There's been no drama really this entire primary season. If you want drama, I think the E-television network has something like Real Housewives of some state or city around the country. There's nothing here. And so look, so where does she go? She says she's going to be in this through Super Tuesday. Every time she says, I'm going to continue on, I continue to shake my head and go, no, why? Doesn't make any sense. And so the answer really is the Hail Mary strategy, right? Yeah. This idea that somehow Donald Trump is going to trip up. Somehow it's all going to just come crashing down on Donald Trump. Look, it has not happened yet. Since he's glided down the escalator, it's been everything but. And so I just don't see it happening. We'll see. I mean, this is going to be a pummeling. What is she up? She's down 13, 14 now. It'll go up much higher.
16. It's actually 16 right now 16. With 20% in. That's according to AP.
Yeah, and it'll grow as well. Not to geek out. I won't geek out too much tonight. Just one county to look at. That's Lexington County. That's near Columbia, a little south of Columbia, southwest. And that is where Nikki Haley normally does well. And, of course, I had to put my glasses on. I can't really see that. But what is she at in Lexington? She's at, I can't even read that, but in Lexington County, Trump was beating her by 6 points. What is it now? Let's take a look. Lexington is south of Columbia. Do you have it? Yeah, so she's still down about 6 points to Donald Trump in Lexington County, which is where she does very, very well. That's kind of the hotbed of success for Nikki Haley. There's no hotbed of any type of success tonight, Dan.
No, there's not. I mean, she vowed and she said, look, there's a lot at stake here. And so we're going to pour a lot of resources into Super Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know, David, it just seems like you're saying here, it just seems like this is not really putting resources into Super Tuesday, but sort of just putting resources, throwing them out the window, essentially.
Yeah, or maybe even flushing money down the toilet.
Yeah.
That's what she's going to be doing with her donor money by doing it. Look, this is over. Let's look at a geographic map in my mind, which is relatively a scary thing. But look, here's the truth of the matter. Donald Trump has won all over America, in the heartland in Iowa, in New Hampshire. That would be the East, of course. You go to the Mountain West. You won in Nevada. And now tonight in the South. It's a slam dunk, and it is not even close. I mean, it's not even close in any of these states. So Donald Trump is going to be the nominee of the Republican Party, bar some sort of crazy situation, which, of course, Nikki Haley is hoping it happens. But if you look inside the exit poll numbers tonight, Dan, a couple things stick out to me. Number one is, what was the number one issue for voters tonight in South Carolina? Was not the economy. Matter of fact, it was a distant second. Number one was immigration. And that's important to understand. 41% of voters said number one priority, immigration. Number two, economy. That came at 31%, 10 points less than immigration. What does that tell me? It tells me one main thing, that Donald Trump ran on immigration in 2016. He became president of the United States. In 2020, he didn't have to run on immigration. He was president. Relatively, things were not so bad. Definitely not as bad as they are today. And now in 2024, he's running on immigration again. It is the number one issue, sometimes tied with the economy. But the bottom line is, you can call it the number one issue, and he's on his way potentially to a second term, not necessarily consecutively, but a second term as president. Immigration is the sweet spot, is the secret sauce for Donald Trump, Dan.
Well, and I think, listen, I think what's happening is that people are now seeing, when all these different cities decided to make themselves sanctuary cities, right? And they said, you know what, we know how to lovingly help everybody on the border. And then when everyone's like, okay, we're going to go ahead and send these migrants that keep coming in that we can't help because there's too many of them coming in, we'll send them up to you because you're saying you want to help them. This is the first election, I believe, that we're seeing that immigration crisis. We're all visualizing it spill into other cities. You didn't have that before. You kind of had this ethereal sort of, well, we know there's all these border interactions, but we don't see it. You are now seeing people lined up looking for homes. Massachusetts, they're literally having people say, hey, can you take some migrants into your house? We have nowhere to put them. And I saw a couple stories, David, of people calling in saying, yeah, we'll do that. We're able to do that. Within an hour, they get a phone call. I mean, that's how desperate this situation is. And so, so I'm not surprised. All that to say, I'm not surprised this is the number one issue because people are feeling that big time.
Dan, it's a really astute observation of where you're going with this, or where you've actually gone, which is that you're right. This is the first time that sanctuary city element is in play, that we're not just talking about Texas and Arizona and other border states. We're literally talking about New York and, of course, so many of Chicago and all the other major metropolitan cities. I mean, the folks in Chicago, African-American residents, are just livid in Chicago, saying, what in the world? What are you doing? We got enough problems in Chicago. The last thing we need are illegal immigrants causing potential problems in our city and getting free. What they're concerned about is the free handouts that illegal immigrants are getting, and the African-American community and the Hispanic community and as well as the white community as it relates to the underserved, underprivileged folks that run the gamut across Chicago. They're all wondering, wait a minute, well, what about us? So look, you're absolutely right, Dan. Look, can I just make a quick other point about something I saw in the exit polls? Can I do that real quick?
Yeah, go for it. The floor is yours. And then I want to play this Trump clip here once you wrap that up.
My ego appreciates it, Dan. Look, here's the deal. One very interesting stat tonight in the exit polls, and we saw this in Iowa, we saw it in New Hampshire, and here it was again. 65% of Republican voters tonight believe that Joe Biden did not win the 2020 election legitimately. That is a staggering number. It has been a staggering number in Iowa. It was a staggering number in New Hampshire. It's a staggering number again tonight. And can I do a disclaimer real quick?
Sure.
I'm sure there are a lot of conservatives out there. Not a lot. I'll just call them. There are some conservatives out there. There's some Republicans out there literally taking Alka-Seltzer when I give that statistic. I understand they can't stand Donald Trump. I understand they're probably thinking, what are these people, quote, smoking? But the reality is that's where the party is today. But the disclaimer simply was to say, look, as Bill Clinton would say, I feel your pain, but the problem is that's it. That's the deal. This is the do-over election, whether you like it or not. Don't blame the messenger. Don't blame me. Not that you're going to blame me, but that's the analysis tonight. This is the do-over election. And Dan, you and I have talked about this before. This is a really, really important point. If I say nothing else, this is the number one thing that people need to understand. Donald Trump and the base of the Republican Party believe they were gypped in 2020. Now, you can go into all of your arguments about Mike Pence did the right thing. You can go into all your arguments about the court saw this, the court saw that, they found nothing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is that the Republican Party base, not all the Republicans, I got it. That was my disclaimer. But the Republican Party base agrees with Donald Trump. And so therefore, this is the do-over election. That's why no other candidate has had a shot. And that's why Donald Trump is running the table, because they want him back in the White House. And the good news for Donald Trump, he's been there once and things were pretty darn good for Americans until COVID hit, of course. But things were going really, really well. So that's good news for Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to play this clip from Trump here in just a moment, Crutch. But first, I just want to remind you that in the chat there, we're kind of monitoring that. So if you have a question, write question in big caps, because all of them keep flying by, and so we sort of miss them. It's easy to miss them. But write question in big caps if you got a question for David about the exit polling, about anything else, about VP stuff. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. And I appreciate you all being here. I see Larry from Virginia. I see Lynn from Lakeland, Florida. and a whole bunch of other people in there in the chat letting their voice be heard. So we appreciate y'all being here. And like I said, put questions down there if you got them. And if not, then that's great too. Just hang out with us as we go through some of the details here on this. But wanted to play for you some of what Trump said after this victory.
We ran 2 great races, but there's never been a spirit like this. And I just want to say that I have never seen the Republican Party so unified as it is right now. Never been like this. It's an early evening and a fantastic. So you can all go down and you can celebrate for about 15 minutes, and we have to get back to work because the big date, you know, Michigan's coming up. We're doing great. The auto workers are going to be with us 100% because they got sold out by this country. But Michigan's up, and we're going to have a tremendous success there. And then we have a thing called Super Tuesday, and I think we're leading 91-7 overall. And we're going to be up here on November 5th, and we're going to look at Joe Biden, and we're going to look him right in the eye. He's destroying our country, and we're going to say, Joe, you're fired. Get out. Get out, Joe. You're fired.
Well, you know, David, I wanted to touch on something really quick here and what he said there. I have this sneaking suspicion that the pain that people are feeling has been sort of brushed under the rug by the current administration. Because what I'm seeing in the messaging from them is them sort of trying to spin. There's very little of trying to empathize or sympathize with what people are going through right now, as far as grocery prices, gas prices, you know, house price, all the rest. And there's very little sympathizing with that, maybe like a little line or a throwaway line, but there's a lot of trying to explain how Bidenomics is working. They adopted that phrase and look at all these great things and all the jobs that are happening. And I just feel like there's a big disconnect there. And
Yes.
and maybe that's sort of what's simmering beneath the surface right now. I mean, we'll see as this plays out in November, but that's just sort of the hunch I have right now.
Dan, 100%. You are spot on. Look, the Biden administration will say, look, the economy is actually going pretty good. Let me show you a spreadsheet. And someone will say, you know what? Let me go to the grocery store. Let me go to the gas station. Let me go X, Y, and Z, and I'll let you know. Let me see if I can buy a home. And I'll get back to you. And I got your spreadsheet right here, as they like to say in New York. Okay, so there's a big disconnect, number one. Number two, there's a gaslighting effect going on here. You know, the Biden administration says the economy is good. Americans are looking around going, don't gaslight us. We know what we see. Joe Biden says, I'm mentally fine the other day. I'm mentally fine. And Americans are like, don't gaslight us. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has gone in front of Congress 20 plus times saying the border is secure. Do not, I repeat, all caps, do not gaslight us. Dan, you are exactly right. There is a disconnect between the Biden administration and the American people, and that is the 101 cardinal sin in politics. The minute you disconnect from the electorate, you're toast. Barack Obama never disconnected from the electorate. He won 2 terms. Bill Clinton, same thing, won 2 terms. And I can go on down the list. In this case, Joe Biden's in a world of trouble.
Right, and we haven't even touched on anything. Last time when Matt was here with us, we also talked about the health issues that are surrounding the questions that are surrounding the current president. And those are not just coming from hit pieces on the right. The people on the left are saying, wait a minute, maybe we need to get somebody else out. I mean, you have that conversation happening on the left, just to shows you how serious people are taking that. I mean, we can all see with our own eyes and make our own judgment on that. But did you want to comment on that before I moved on?
Well, I was just going to say that you mentioned that, which leads me to CPAC, which of course is going on near Washington, D.C. This past weekend and today. And they just had the straw poll. And one of the questions in the straw poll was, if Joe Biden's not the nominee, who do you think it's going to be? I mean, this is the conversation that everybody's talking about now because of Joe Biden's mental acuity or lack thereof. And so in that straw poll, number one, 47% of folks at CPAC, these are the conservatives there, the MAGA conservatives, as you will, think Michelle Obama is going to be the pick. And then came, I'm having a, let's see, Gavin Newsom, sorry. Gavin Newsom. Yeah. Hello. Sorry, I got distracted by his hairspray. Gavin Newsom, and those were the two main ones, and then RFK Jr. So anyhow, the point is, the fact that it's even a straw poll question shows you that it's actually being taken pretty seriously, not just by conservatives, who cares about them, but actually by the Democrats themselves.
Yeah, indeed. And, you mentioned that the straw poll there at CPAC, also there was on the VP, and like for the Republicans, who should that be? And I think that's an look, I mean, we all kind of can see, unless there's some dramatic turnaround, that Trump's going to be the nominee. And so the biggest question left out there is, well, who's going to be with Trump? Because remember, he only gets one term. So good chance that you want somebody in there who is going to have a good chance to continue on and get reelected if you're a Republican. So what happened with that straw poll? What are people looking at thinking for Trump's VP?
I've got the results here. I know a few of them off the top of my head. It was a tie. Governor Kristi Noem came in at 15% in that straw poll as the VP choice, along with Vivek Ramaswamy at 15%. Interesting. Elise Stefanik, Congresswoman from New York, high-ranking Republican official, coming in third. I'll go down the list. There was at some point Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Ron DeSantis and Dr. Ben Carson, all at 5%. They were in the middle of the pack. Tim Scott, I think, was at 8%. But it seems right now, according to CPAC, conservative, the MAGA base, and that's another issue we can talk about, how CPAC was really kind of controlled by the MAGA universe this past few days. But MAGA seems to like Governor Kristi Noem and Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't think Vivek has a shot. I think Kristi Noem is probably going to be the pick, though there's some other ones as well.
Yeah, it was interesting. I found when Trump just, I guess it was a few days ago, maybe last week, I don't remember exactly when, but he sort of opened the door to a whole bunch of candidates, even Ron DeSantis, which I found pretty interesting after the whole Ron DeSanctimonious thing. It seems like Trump is always willing to bury the hatchet on the nicknames once he gets past past them. But is he really seriously considering that wide of a number of people, or is he just sort of playing nice?
Well, no, he's playing nice, and there's no doubt he's not picking Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis would never be his VP anyhow. But so he's not picking DeSantis. But I think he was playing nice. I remember the way the question was asked. It was kind of like DeSantis, whose name was in the middle of a pack of people, and he just said, "Yeah, they're all on the short list." But he was just kind of talking the way Trump talks. I mean, you can't commit him to anything. But all of a sudden, the headline is DeSantis on the short list. No, there's no, it's ridiculous. DeSantis is not going to be the pick. I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders would be a very interesting pick. Though, then the question becomes, are you ready to step in and become president of the United States? I think that would be a legitimate question that Sarah Huckabee Sanders would kind of have to be vetted through. But Governor Kristi Noem, Congresswoman, governor, she's there.
Yeah, and Noem is one of those ones, kind of along with DeSantis, who kind of held the line in a lot of conservatives' views during the COVID time, right? When there was all this pressure to shut everything down. Yeah. And she was one of those governors that kind of, and I think that's an interesting, because Trump was in there trying to navigate COVID. There all this unprecedented stuff happening. And so, but Noem kind of stuck to a lot of the conservative principles, trying to keep things open, let people have their freedom. And so that's an interesting sort of notch that she's got on her resume when it comes to that. But it would be interesting to see how she would poll as far as in that, first term is up, going into the second term. How would she fare in a general?
Yeah, she didn't shut down the state. She didn't shut down South Dakota.
Right.
At all. Yeah. So that's a boon, big time. MAGA will love her for that. But let's remember, MAGA's not going to get you there. Right. I mean, MAGA might be 35% or so of the country. That, you're not going to win if MAGA is the only, showing up. If MAGA's showing up and you've ticked off the rest of the GOP. I think the winning strategy for Trump in the fall is going to be basically twofold. One, you have to have the enthusiasm from MAGA. You'll get that, obviously. We know that's happening. There's threefold, excuse me. That's one. Two, you pick a good VP and you hope to get some, whether it be independents or women in the suburbs. I call them the hold your nose crowd that would see Governor Kristi Noem coming along and go, you know what? Okay, we've got a little bit more, sense of ease, if you will. Mike Pence did that for Donald Trump in 2016. So Noam could help, especially in the suburbs with females. I know that's called identity politics. Oh, well, it's done all the time. And so that's two. And then the third part that they're banking on, and let's be honest, deflated turnout from Democrats, from the left, that there is a sense that there's not much enthusiasm at all for Biden. So you put all those three together, and that's a winning combination for Trump in the fall.
So we got some updates here on the numbers. Again, this is not in doubt. I'm not trying to keep you in suspense here any longer. This thing was over just minutes after the polls closed, but it is interesting to kind of note, like, what is the final number going to be? Because did he outperform? Did he underperform? I mean, that's essentially where we're at on this campaign. But right now, according to AP, we got 34% of the votes counted, and Trump has 59.3% of the vote. Nikki Haley, 40.1% of the vote. So commanding nearly 20-point lead right now at this point with 34%
and it'll go
of the
up
votes
from there,
counted.
Dan. It'll go up from there. Yeah.
Which is crazy because this is Nikki Haley's home state. I mean, this should be your home playing field. If you're the best chance that you're going to have, I mean, it's got to be deflating to think, okay, I'm doing terribly in my home state, and now we're going to go out and try to sweep a bunch of states on Super Tuesday. It just, there's
a lot of reason that Nikki Haley is losing tonight, but one reason, especially in her home state, the voters there do not like the fact that Nikki Haley, the only way Nikki Haley can do relatively well is to pick up Democrats and independents, and she's trashing Trump left and right. That's not good. That's not good for her. It's not a good look for her. And so that's hurting her actually in her home state. I think she'd do better if she just kind of took the high road, but she's not. And because of that, I think that's hurting her. I also think that if you look inside the number, there's a third exit poll number that we haven't talked about. And obviously, oh, look, it's CBN. It's us. We should probably talk about that. And that's the evangelical number.
Yeah.
Tonight, that vote was, when I say that vote, I'm talking about the electorate was made up of 66% of evangelicals. So in other words, out of all of the Republicans that voted tonight, 66% of them consider themselves evangelical. That number, that evangelical number, was only 19% in New Hampshire. Not surprising. We know not many evangelicals reside up there. It was 55% evangelical turnout in Iowa. So tonight, the largest evangelical turnout, 66% in South Carolina, which kind of gets us into all sorts of a myriad of philosophical and deep questions about evangelicals and Trump and the changing evangelical voter in America. But anyhow, that's just an interesting stat to think about.
It is. And, I want to dive a little further into this because I feel like we've had, David, in the last couple of days, a little tip of the hand. You see the narratives that maybe some the Democratic operatives want to get out into the media sphere. Right. And you see them kind of leaked out. These thought balloons get leaked out. Well, one that happened at the end of last week here was a reporter from Politico, and I'm forgetting her name. I don't have it in front of me. But she wrote an article about how Christian nationalists are circling around former President Trump. And it was kind of this big, you need to be very afraid of all these Christian nationalists because they believe very, very crazy things. And so you're like, oh, well, what are these crazy things these Christian nationalists believe? It sounds very scary. Tell me more. And she says they believe, this is actually what she said, that Christian nationalists, they all unite on the idea, and they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress or the Supreme Court. They come from, dun, 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 God.
Stop.
And so my reaction to this, David, before I get yours, was I was like, she's very surprised. Imagine how surprised she's going to be when she reads the Declaration of Independence for the first time. It's right in there, endowed by our creator with certain inalienable rights. So your reaction to that and the whole Christian nationalism sort of attack line that they're putting out there now.
Well, this is what the left does. And let's be clear, words matter. Dan, as you know, words matter. And that's the whole idea here, to basically pigeonhole, stereotype tens of millions of Americans as Christian nationalists. And so let's be clear what the left thinks. And she said it out loud. She said the quiet part out loud. But I've been saying this now for over a year, actually since January 6th, I've been saying this. You know, the left took January 6th, a horrible day, just a horrible day with quite a few bozos, so to speak, that went into the Capitol and did what they did. And they took it and they decided to make tens of millions of people all Christian nationalists, all evil. So, for example, if you're a Christian and you support Donald Trump and you love America, get ready because you're a Christian nationalist. There's no doubt about it. Once again, if you are a strong fan of Donald Trump, that's the linchpin here. If you're a strong fan of Donald Trump and you're a Christian and you love the country, you're a Christian nationalist. Oh, by the way, you might be a KKK member as well. As a matter of fact, you probably are. That's what the left is trying to accomplish with their narrative out there. Now, I've always said, and I've said this for a very long time, you have to be a smart consumer of news. You need to use your noggin, as my dad would say, and do some research and understand exactly the parameters of what we're talking about here. She is lying. Politico is lying. That is not true. The left is lying. So anyhow, don't get me started on all that. I'll just simply say that's obviously a problem. But let's remember, you know, I say this is what the left does. Let me give you one last example, Dan. What are the Democrats saying is the number one threat? The left is saying that Donald Trump is a, quote, let's say it together, a threat to democracy, right? Yeah. We hear it all the time, a threat to democracy. Okay, so let me get this straight. That's the narrative they've created. Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. A lot of people believe it. The left believes it. And let's be honest, there are some conservatives that believe it too. Some, not all, some. Here's the problem with that. The Democrats are literally trying to put Donald Trump, the leading political opponent of Joe Biden, in jail before the election in an election year. So that's not a threat to democracy. You see what they're doing here. They're trying to turn the tables. They did it on the situation with with the mental acuity. I mean, Joe Biden's been a gaffe machine since 1946 or whatever it's been, or since Reconstruction. And now we know with what's going on regarding, you know, some of his advanced age, we know he's got some problems there. And now all of a sudden they're trying to equate Donald Trump with Joe Biden. Give me a colossal break. This is what the left does. It's just very frustrating because, I mean, do they really think we're stupid? Well, that's a rhetorical question. The answer is yes, they do. And they're banking on the fact that you'll stay stupid and not do the research yourself. Look, I'm not advocating for either position. What I'm advocating for is for people to be smart consumers of news and do their research and then come to their own conclusion, Dan.
Absolutely. You know, when you're talking about this, trying to throw him in prison as they're doing. We know if it were reversed, you'd see everyone in the mainstream media worried about a banana republic and everything like that. But clearly to me, what this indicates, David, is the Democrats believe, because they knew that there would be this rallying around Trump when they threw all these charges at him. They knew people would, you know, because it was uncertain before all this how he would fare trying to run for it again. But as soon as that happened, it was like everyone's like, you know, the support flocked to him as soon as all of these indictments and everything came in. And I think this is that's another, you gotta kind of read what you're seeing here. And Democrats believe their best chance to win is by going against Donald Trump because they can deflect from all of the things that are happening that we talked about earlier with the grocery prices, trying to buy eggs. They won't have to talk about that. They'll just make it all about Trump. The media will go along with it. That's how Biden got in the first place. Yeah. It was just them talking about Trump all the time. And it was like, well, we don't have to worry about Biden. He's not crazy Bernie or somebody like that. And so I'm just wondering if this strategy, if they're worried at all that this may backfire on them.
Yeah, that's it, Dan. That's it. I'm glad you went there. It's backfiring. I mean, we're in real time now. This is backfired. They thought 91 indictments would stop Trump. It hasn't. It's made him stronger. They may think a conviction is going to stop Trump. It will not stop Trump. He will be stronger after a conviction if there ever is one. You can put it down, roll the tape, Dan, put it in a shelf somewhere, and let's bring it back in August or September. I'm telling you, his poll numbers will go up after a conviction, guaranteed. Here's the point. Democrats were banking on running against Trump because they thought he would lose to Biden. Here's what they didn't bank on. Joe Biden. They didn't bank on the fact that this has been a colossal, I mean, you see what's going on. I mean, can I just be honest? We all have family members, sadly, that we know kind of behave like this, and we see it. We see it in front of our eyes. We're not stupid. So Democrats have not banked, they weren't banking on it being that bad, but this soon in terms of it being an election year. And now, where does it leave them? You know where it leaves them, Dan? It leaves them with David Axelrod and other Democrats coming out and say, Joe, I'm not quite sure. I think it might be time. It's now a special counsel report going there on certain places, and the DOJ and Merrick Garland and others not saying a word about it and just letting it go out there. Look, this is a slow drip. And this is a good example of this is a pressure campaign on Joe Biden to get out of the race. That's what this is. And here's why. Because of what you just said. They believe that Joe Biden now will lose to Donald Trump. And they do not want that to happen. So they're trying to do anything possible, including jettison Joe, if you will. And I know Nikki's about to speak, but jettison Joe to make sure that Trump never sees and sniffs the White House.
Yeah. Let's just listen in here. Nikki's going to speak. We'll just take a moment or two of this and see what she has to say after Trump's resounding victory here in South Carolina.
Obviously, thanking my family. I am so incredibly blessed. I was able to speak with Michael this morning. His support has been amazing. The kids have really stepped up, sometimes too much, but they have stepped up in a way that has made me so, so proud. I am blessed because I had the ability to actually go vote today with my mom. And there's something very special with the fact that she was a lawyer in India and she was named one of the first female judges. And because of the times, she was never able to sit on the bench. But the fact that she could go with me and cast her ballot for her daughter as President of the United States was an amazing. My parents who taught me strength and grace. I want to thank Michael's parents who have been unbelievably supportive through all of this.
We're watching Nikki Haley here. She's speaking live, and she's just going through all of her thank yous right now. And so we're waiting to see if she would respond to what the status is. We'll keep an eye on that. But right now, she's just sort of thanking everybody for.
Yeah, I'd be curious what she's going to do. I mean, that's the big news will be she should say something right here at the top if she's getting out. I would think. Tough. I don't think she's going to wait.
I haven't lost sight of that.
Yeah, we'll listen for a few more minutes here.
I've felt God's strength and grace every step of the way. I'm blessed to have served the state that raised me. And I look forward to continuing to be blessed to serve the state that raised me, whether it's going and voting with my mom or whether it is being with our family. We're very grateful for the good people of South Carolina. Thank you. And it's a blessing to know that across our sweet state, everyone wants to bring back the America we know and love. That's the underlying message of what happened today. I want to congratulate Donald Trump on his victory. And I want to thank the people of South Carolina for using the power of your voice. No matter the results, I love the people of our state. I love what we accomplished together, and I love how we united during our worst challenges and tragedies. I've always seen our state as a family. Families are honest with each other. They say the hard truths. That's what I've done this entire campaign. And that's what I'll do now. What I saw today was South Carolina's frustration with our country's direction. I've seen that same frustration nationwide. I share it. I feel it to my core. I couldn't be more worried about America. It seems like our country is falling apart. But here's the thing. America will come apart if we make the wrong choices. This has never been about me or my political future. We need to beat Joe Biden in November. I don't believe Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden. Nearly every day, Trump drives people away, including with his comments just yesterday. Today in South Carolina, we're getting around 40% of the vote. That's about what we got in New Hampshire, too. I'm going to count it. I know 40% is not 50%. But I also know 40% is not some tiny group.
All right. So, David, I mean, we'll just hop in here for a moment if she adds anything else here. But, I mean, she really walked that up. And I got to just say, David, real quick, I thought for a moment she might be dropping out. Because the way she was wording that.
She probably is not, but I think that the line may be coming up. Are we able to go back to it?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Let's go. Let's keep listening.
Oh, no, she may have said it.
I'm a woman of my word. I'm not giving up this fight when a majority of Americans disapprove of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. South Carolina has spoken. We're the fourth state to do so. In the next 10 days, another 21 states and territories will speak. They have the right to a real choice. Not a Soviet-style election with only one candidate. And I have a duty to give them that choice.
Yeah. You want to react now, David?
We can't afford 4 more years of Biden's failures.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on that. But I mean, like I was saying, David, it sure seemed like for a moment there she was toying with the cameras and with the audiences, thinking like, well, I'm honest with everybody and I say like it is, which some would read to say, well, it doesn't look like you can win, and so therefore you're going to drop out. And then she kind of doubled down and saying she doesn't think Trump can win.
I'm kind of speechless. I'm not quite sure what to say. This makes no sense. It makes no sense. I mean, I've known Nikki Haley for about a decade or so, and I know her relatively well. I mean, we have, a relationship, so to speak. This is a side of her I've not seen before. This double down to the point where it's become an embarrassment. I mean, it really has. You lost big all over the country. You lost big all over the country. There's not one shred of evidence here that could suggest that you've got any sort of shot. And she's continuing on. So, I don't know. Maybe it's about an MSNBC contract at this point. I have no idea. Maybe it's about her and Jen Psaki co-anchoring some show. maybe it's her and Jake Tapper next year on CNN. I don't honestly, and I mean that's not even a joke. And I don't know at this point what it is, other than that, and of course what we always talk about, the Hail Mary strategy. But it can't really be a Hail Mary strategy after Super Tuesday. I mean, after Super Tuesday, I mean, I'm looking at the states, and you got Texas, and you got Vermont, and you got Massachusetts, and you've who am I missing? I've got so many more. Oh, Virginia will be there. Yeah, Michigan coming up in just a few days on Tuesday, on the 27th February. So I mean, and you go, and there's so many more, and they're all open primaries. So she's thinking that maybe there's a shot. There's no shot. There's no shot. Anyhow, Dan. So yeah. I guess we should have expected this, because she did say she was going to stay through Super Tuesday, and I guess she's a woman of her word, if you will.
Yeah, it is really interesting, and I see all kinds of theories in the chat as to why it could be, but their guess is as good as ours. I mean, there's really, like you said, there's got to be some secondary reason, because that's a lot of money and resources to spend on the principle of it, right? Like if you just think, well, I think I'm a better option, and people deserve a better option. I mean, and if you really think that, Biden needs to go at some point, don't you just do what's good for the party and just get this thing over with?
You know what? I mean, I don't know. I can't see the chat. I mean, you can. I mean, I don't know what they're saying, but I'll tell you this, and I'm not putting a tinfoil hat on or anything here, but maybe, just maybe, it's to the point where Nikki Haley feels that Donald Trump is indeed a threat to democracy. And because she thinks he's a threat to democracy, Joe Biden and the leftist policies for America are the least bad choice. In other words, maybe threat to democracy trumps leftist policies. I mean, maybe she's made that calculation to say, you know what, I'd rather have Joe Biden at 117 years old and not quite knowing what he's doing and having leftist policies in place to destroy America. I'd rather have that than Donald Trump, who could, just do who knows what with a second term in the White House. Maybe that's the calculation. I don't know, Dan. I really don't. But that is some speculation. You have to go and speculate now, because this doesn't make any sense. Donald Trump is setting records as he goes. I mean, he's setting records in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. She got a beatdown tonight in South Carolina, electorally, from a voting standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the silver lining? Where's the ray of optimism? 40% in South Carolina. That is such a spin by Nikki Haley. 40% in your home state where you've been governor and they love you, and you get 40%. That's not a win. That's an embarrassment.
Yeah, and AP has it at 52% of the votes counted right now, by the way, and Trump at 60.1, and Haley right now at 39.2. So at least according to AP, their tally so far, she hasn't hit that 40% yet. Maybe she'll get there. But it leaves us kind of like grasping at straws here to figure out what the end. Does maybe she think in some universe, if Trump were to somehow get convicted on all these charges that are being thrown at him, which I think a lot of people are just view it purely as politics. So seems unlikely that that's going to happen. But if it did happen and he was charged, is she kind of just waiting and hoping that she's sort of the one to benefit from that? But as you've said, it doesn't even seem like she would benefit from it, because it would just rally people to Trump even more.
Well, she wouldn't. She wouldn't win, Dan. Let's just go through the numbers, and I won't geek out. I'll keep it to 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
But let's go through this for a second. Something happens to Trump. He's convicted. His numbers crater. He's got to get out. He's going to jail. I don't know, something like that. He's out of the race. Nikki Haley is now the last woman standing, if you will. It's Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden. Well, hold on for a second. She keeps saying that she's going to beat Joe Biden by X amount of percentage points. Well, no. Hold on. The variable has now changed. Donald Trump is now out of the race. You're going to tell me that 35% of MAGA is going to be enthused to vote for Nikki Haley? Not in a million years. They're going to sit home and not vote for her at all. They'll go to RFK. They'll go to their couch with Doritos. But they are, or they just won't, just not going to vote at all, obviously. They're not voting for Nikki Haley. So think about this, Dan, for a second, just from a logical standpoint. Donald Trump has the base of the party. It is MAGA. It's tens of millions of people across this country. He has them. He has them. And now Nikki Haley would come in at the last moment and say, you know, I know Donald's not around. I said some really mean things about him, but still vote for me. Not a chance. Not a chance. She'll lose, and she'll lose big time to Biden.
Indeed. And as if you're just joining us now, we're just recapping everything that's going on tonight. Nikki Haley just spoke moments ago after her resounding loss here in South Carolina, her home state. And the final numbers are not tallied yet, but as I said, it's a 60.4 to 38.9 difference right now, with more than half of the votes in. And Haley vowing to continue just moments ago and saying, you know what, we're gonna keep this thing going. I'm a woman of my word. That's what she said. And so here we are, kind of trying to dissect through this thing here and find some logical reason why this thing would keep on going. And I mean, look, I don't want to speak for you, David, but I feel like we're struggling trying to find that, and that may be because it's not there.
That's what it is, Dan. That's
yeah.
Right.
So
that's what it is. No, I'm glad you made that point, Dan, because the reason we're struggling, I mean, as I compliment both of us, it's not our fault. I mean, you know, and folks in the chat, if you're trying to come up with a reason and you're going, you know, well, there's this theory and that theory and this theory. You know what? Blame Nikki Haley, because no one has any clue. And that's why I keep getting back to this MSNBC contract. And I really mean that. You know, I think she's going to be the spokeswoman for the anti-Trump campaign. She's venturing into Liz Cheney territory, and she's getting there pretty quickly. And look, there's a market for it. It's niche, but there's a market for it. And maybe, Dan, just maybe, she's thinking, here's another possibility. She's thinking, and I don't see this either, but maybe, who knows at this point, maybe she's thinking, you know what? I'll be back in 2028. Trump will be, you know, out of politics at that point. You can only run one more term. He'll be done. MAGA will go with him. It'll be a new time in Republican politics. Let's bring back Paul Ryan. Let's bring back Mitt Romney. Let's bring back, you know, Ronald Reagan. We'll take him up as well. Oh, wait, no, he's not alive, but you know the point. And we will start making America great again. Haley Pence in 2028. I don't know, Dan. Listen, I'm just a guy on a Saturday night with no tie. I don't know.
Me too, David. And I have an admission to make as you were going through that point.
Yeah.
You said the 2028 election. I've kind of mentioned what happens after Trump, you know, because it's his second term and he can't run again. That's the first time I've actually heard somebody reference that election using 2028. And that's just, it was really weird. I'm not going to lie. It was just a weird sound for me, because 2028 sounds like one of those years that was so far down the road. You know, I don't know. Just in my mind, like 2028 was one of those numbers that would just never get. This is a side point. This has nothing to do with anything other than me going, wow, we're within eyeshot of 2028. And where is the time going?
Well, remember, Mike Pence is setting up or has set up or is in the process of setting up. What is it? A $20 million or so, $20 million, some sort of think. I guess it's called a think tank, an organization that's looking to save traditional conservatism from populism. So he's out there doing that. Nikki Haley is out there saying, I'm not going to quit. So there's this kind of nascent movement, if you will, of Haley and Pence who are saying, not on our watch. And so you wonder if this is kind of laying the seeds, laying the groundwork for, here I say it again, Dan, 2028, where they hope that this will all be kind of fleshed out and a little bit out of everybody's system, and let's return to regular order, as they say. I don't buy it. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we saw Sarah Palin come onto the scene in 2008, the Tea Party in 2010, Donald Trump in 2016. I think there is a movement afoot. Clearly there is with MAGA. And I'm not sure that just goes away. I think politics has been changed forever in America. And I think the Nikki Haleys and the Mike Pences of the world are going to have to figure out how to navigate that terrain. Right now, that's not happening at all for them. Will it change? Doubtful. But that's probably their only hope. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, there are a lot of interesting things that you can dissect, too, like the future of the GOP and what does that look like? What are their core beliefs? How does that all pan out? We can get all into that. We're going to have plenty of time between now and November to dissect a lot of that. But
I'll be much fatter then. I'll be much fatter then. I'm looking forward to that.
All right. So, Dave, let's get your final thoughts here. on what we saw tonight and just any other lingering thoughts you may have floating around here before we sign off for the evening.
Well, that's a dangerous dangerous situation. If you want my lingering thoughts, I don't think anybody in America wants those. Look, what's the final theme here tonight? Dominance. And what do I mean by dominance? I'll say a couple of words. I don't know. I feel like Joe Biden. I'm going to give you a couple of words, and then it might be like 10 or 12. I don't know how many words I'm going to give you, but I'll just say this. All across America, in every geographic region, Donald Trump has dominated. That's called game, set, match. You could have made the case in Iowa, after Iowa, to say, okay, it was Iowa. Let's see. Let's move on to New Hampshire. That's a little bit of a different state. It is. He won there convincingly. Let's go to the Mountain West. There's a little different voter. Hispanics a little bit more prevalent out there. The whole thing. Same result. Let's go to the South. Evangelicals. Different than New Hampshire for sure. Same result. So it is dominance, American style, Trump style, and Nikki Haley is hanging on. And sorry, not going to work. Sorry. That's all I've got. I wish I had more lingering thoughts, but I'm out of thoughts on a Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being here, David.
You bet.
Appreciate all of you in the chat who are riding along with us here as we do this. And, and I just want to end on a serious note. I think we do need to be praying for the country because as we're looking into all these different aspects of what we're seeing unfold here, I think it's without dispute that we are living in one of the most divided times in our country's history. I think it's exacerbated by social media. You can have people all are voicing their opinions and blasting them out there, and it's just been so hyper focused on our divisions more now than at least in my lifetime, and I'm nearing that half-century mark here. So I think we need to be praying for the country, regardless of what happens. I think there's so much distrust of Washington, D.C. out there right now that either way, you're going to see a lot of unrest coming up. And I hope I'm wrong on that. That's just a sense that I have given all the rhetoric that I see out there. So just be praying for the country that, and we know that God's sovereign and he's on his throne, but we need to be praying for his provision here in the coming days. But David, appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for breaking all of this down. Always enjoy your analysis.
Thanks.
And we'll look forward to the next one.
Can't wait.
All right, everybody. Good night. God bless you. Have a great rest of your weekend.